Okay, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, saints and sinners, believers and non-believers, this is me, back for your third edition and the final edition of Why Some People Hate God. I know it's crazy, but they do. Actually, if you watch the two prior videos, you understand that a lot of things that people consider as hate are really not hate. Some people just have a different opinion on God. So, for that perspective, please, I encourage you to watch video 1 and 2. I think you'll find something in there that's refreshing, encouraging, and a different take on hate. So, just want to finish up with this video and give my final summation in the conclusion of why some people hate God. Okay? So, this is Stone Thug. And yes, I'm a music guy. And yes, I'm an artist. Actual painter. And a green home developer. And a prison reform advocate. And a green home developer. And a poet. And a music maker, writer, actor, and producer. So if you get a chance, by all means, though this video is not really about me per se, you're probably wondering, who is this guy? And why would somebody by the name of Stone Thug be doing anything about the Lord? Isn't a person by the name of Stone Thug, isn't that like a bad guy? No, I'm an entertainer. I started with rap music. I sing a lot of ballads as well. So I'm a crooner as well. That's an old term for a certain type of singing, which with Johnny Mathis and Nat King Cole, even way back, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, the Rat Pack type of singing. So I sing all types of music: gospel, rap, hip hop, rock and roll, even some Disney. So you need to check out StoneThug.com so you can get all that information and you can see some of the stuff that I've worked on. We even do comedy as well. Just finished up a CD video, which is a download called Elvis Presley, King of the Thugs. So I encourage you to go download that as well. That is a fantastically funny parody talking about Elvis Presley's crazy lifestyle that was out of the public's eye, comparing it with a lot of the rappers and entertainers of today. So you can get that right now on iTunes, Amazon, CD Baby, on all the music outlets. So just look up Elvis Presley, King of the Thugs, Google it, or you can just look on StoneThug.com or just Google Stone Thug. All that stuff will come up. Okay? So we want to get that out too. We support street ministry. Initially, it's where I got started with, talking about God and those things. So that's how I started. And of course, we support those things. So if any of you would like to get possibly some of my music, you would like a signed CD of my music, possibly a book that I am self-publishing, as well as a copy of one of my movies. You can get all 3 of those until the first of the year by sending a dollar, listen to me, it costs more than $1 just to send the postage, but a $20 donation, and you can get all 3, the movie, the music CD, and the book, which is an unfinished book, that you can get all signed by sending a $20 or more donation. So don't limit yourself to $20 if you're a big rich guy or gal, and support the things that we do. We do some great things, and we do have t-shirts. We just happen to be all out of them right now. So anyway, but if you want a t-shirt online, just Google Stone Thugs t-shirts, and you can get those online. Matter of fact, most of those items you can get online. So we encourage you to just keep us in mind as well. Okay, so now back to part 3, getting out the commercial aspect of this CD But I know people were wondering, we're getting comments like, why are you doing this? And who are you? And aren't you a music guy? And why Guy Stone Thug is doing this? And what do you know about the ministry? And blah, blah, this and blah, blah, blah. So I had to stop and just give you guys that information. So forgive me if you think I'm mixing business with pleasure, which I believe we should do, because I believe that you being a believer has nothing to do with you being in or out of business. I think that believing in God or believing in the Bible or believing in a higher up does not take you away from the world that we live in. It's okay to be part of the world that we're in. It's okay to realize that we're in this world, and it's okay to live down here until we get to heaven. We need to live here. This is where we are. So you can talk about and deal with life as it is. And that's part of the reason why some people hate God, because they think that everybody got to be all churchy, dress a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way. And that would make a person hate God. That would make me hate God. But God has nothing to do with people. God is very much coolest person in the universe. He totally gets it. He totally understands women. He totally understands children. He totally understands minorities. He totally understands loneliness. He totally gets, depression, pain, anguish. He gets all of that. The Bible said that Jesus Christ, who we believe being the embodiment of God, or God living in the man Jesus Christ, we believe that because he lived on earth and suffered and went through the things that mankind go through, he has a greater understanding of what makes this world tick. He gets us. He's part of us. We understand him. He understands us. And that's the reason why Jesus is such a cool guy. That's the reason why God is so enlightened on mankind, because we believe he created mankind. I know a lot of people out there don't believe that way, and it's cool. It's okay. I used to didn't believe it. A lot of people don't believe it. You may never believe. But I appreciate you taking the time to listen and enjoying the video. I hope if I can make you think about some things, I make you laugh about some things. I'm sure some of you hardcore non-believers are laughing. And it's all good, because you know what? That's important. So, like I said, for the second time, getting back to the point on part 3, 1, 2, 3, why some people hate God. Now, at the latter part of number 2, we were talking about this guy who was an investment banker, who happens to be a Jewish guy, who was investing in stocks that were stocks that had gone, let's say, they actually weren't stocks. They were actually monies that was owed to this particular country, America. And these countries either defaulted, some were forgiven their debt, but some were defaulted on debt to America. And some of these investor guys, one particular guy I was talking about, he was a big time investor. He invested in these stocks. And what these people do with these stocks is that they find a company that's country. You can call them companies now. They're almost all corporate companies now. But the country that defaulted on its debt, and what they did, they swoop in, I guess they call them vulture capitalists or whatever, and they buy up these stocks and they do different things to increase the debt of the country, where the country couldn't even pay the minimum debt before, which was forgiven. And then what happened is these people buy this stock and they tell the country, hey, look, you still owe this debt. You got to pay it, because we bought this debt from the government, or we got this debt from another company, and now you owe us. Pretty much the way credit collectors call us if we fall behind on a bill that we have. Somebody will buy it, they'll come at us. We got a new round of calls, a new round of people looking for money, trying to make different deals, wheeling and dealing for it. And they got ways of playing hardball with these various countries, because these guys have insiders, and they have people that are high up in the government who can cause pain to certain governments. So they tend to be a little harsher than the original debtors. So they generally get squeezed some money out these countries. So I mentioned that for an example to show how people, they are regular people. They go to synagogues. Okay? So they seem like they're regular people. They go to churches, Catholic churches, regular churches. They seem like regular people. Muslims, they go to the mosque. You figure, come on, they understand humanity. They understand about the plight of the little guy. These guys are religious people. They might be, sending letters to the Pope. They might have a church under their family name. They may have a synagogue where they own benches in the synagogue, or they paid for the rabbi's car as a donation. These people seem like upstanding citizens, but in reality, they're hardcore business people and hardcore vulture capitalists who happen to be religious people. So when their children see this and they see the cold-heartedness or brutal business practices of these so-called believers, when the kids see this or their friends see this or people hear about it, they think to themselves, why should I believe in God? If this is what God gets you, if God makes you like these jokers, if reading the Bible and being faithful to your synagogue or to your church or to your mosque make you brutal like these guys, well then your kids see that and you think, hey, I'm okay. I'm a nice guy. I give money. I'm patient. I might do exceedingly wonderful things over here. I coach the Little League team. I own a nice grocery store, flower shop. I treat elderly people well. I'm not racist. I'm just, I hate poor people, But when people see that you are a so-called believer and that you are so insensitive, some of the business practices or some of the things that you do are so diabolical, and you yourself don't see yourself as a bad person. You didn't see your grandparents as bad. You didn't see your mother as bad. You're doing the same thing that your auntie did. You're doing the same thing that all these people were doing. They were not bad people. Why would you be considered a bad person? I go to the synagogue. Well, the rabbi knows my name. Well, the preacher's daughter is a friend of my son's. Or, the mosque. Well, we pray all the time. But in reality, because you say you're part of the mosque, but you believe in honor killings, well, people see that and they think, what the hell? I don't believe that way. I don't think that's right. You go to the mosque and you see people engage in racism toward other races or people who have differences. They hate Christians. Or you go to a synagogue and they hate Muslims. Or you go to a church and they hate black people. And they preach about black people are less than other people. Well, or some other organization that you're part of. And your kids see this. And your family watch you. It just makes them think less of whatever you believe in. And if you claim to be part of the body of believers who believe in a passionate, compassionate, wonderful, patient, understanding, loving, long-suffering God, well then people think that you're a hateful, terrible, diabolical person. And they think that God is going to go down with the ship. And you figured, just like many people back hundreds of years ago during the Crusades and doing the Inquisitions and other things that happened in the world, that God is with us. The Nazis believed God was with us. People believe that God is with us. People like to take God into their mess. I have some friends in the entertainment industry, and they love the Lord, but they love the women too. And they would sometimes bring God up in their mischiefness with women. And I had to remind them, say, look, dog, look, women, you like it, women, hey, we understand. But don't bring God up. Don't soften their hearts up and make them think, okay, you're a God-fearing, believing guy. So you talk about God, so the girl believes that you're not a jerk as you are, and then you go in and take full advantage of the girl. That's no good. And see, people do that all the time. A lot of people don't like Americans because they feel Americans do the same thing. A lot of people feel that it's the history of this country has a dark side in regards to religion. We try to take religion into every diabolical, evil deed we do. When we go to war, God is with us. When we drop a bomb, God is with us. When the Indians were being massacred on the plains, God was with us. They were savages. The people in South Africa was ripping and raping the land of the gold and silver that was there. They thought God was with us. We're the good Christians. That's a term they use in South Africa. We're the good Christians. When good ain't got nothing to do with it, and God is not part of your mess. When people do bad things, when bombers attack in the Middle East and people strap themselves with bombs, when the Muslims were doing it, they thought God was with us. To the Jews in the Middle East, when they were strapping themselves with bombs, fighting England in the earlier part of this country and the development of this nation, they thought God was with them. Some of them, Jewish people, did not really. Believe it or not, a lot of Jewish people in the Middle East are not religious at all. They actually don't believe in God. So that's a whole nother video. That's very interesting. But there's a lot of Jewish people who do believe in God and that do talk about God. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who I just mentioned that happen to be Jewish in the Middle East who don't believe in God, who don't believe in heaven, yet are trying to make claims under the name of God. That's a little weird. And then you got some Middle Eastern people who are believers in the Muslim faith, who do believe in strapping themselves with bombs. But they believe in God. They believe in their 72 virgins. Well, that's a problem. And I'd like to hear more about that 72 virgins. That's pretty interesting. But you got people who go to church in America, wear crosses around their necks, believe in Jesus Christ, but yet believe that, Muslim people all should be annihilated. You got some Jews that believe that. And you got some Muslims that believe that the Jews ought to be annihilated too. You got a lot of annihilating, believing people running around from all faiths. That's no good. Because when your kids see it, they think, this God, he's the problem. What does God got to do with any of this? These are these clowns running around claiming God. God is for peace. God is for love. God is for working together. Man used to work together. He used to do great things. While we were so great, we built the Tower of Babel one day. We were going to reach up to the heavens and see God. We were going to claim that man himself was greater than God. So man got his dashes dashed. But that's another video. But to the main purpose and to close out this video, I want to talk about why I believe in God and why I don't hate God and why I don't hate God's people and why I do not hate the Bible. And my main reason, my main motivation for making this video was to say that I believe because the Bible is such a diabolical, tragedy, terrible, horrible book that is a beautiful book all at the same time. And you say, well, what are you talking about? I think the Bible's horrible because I think it's filled with contradictions. And I think it's filled with fantasy. And I think it's filled with this. And I think it's filled with repression and this and that. And somebody else say, I believe it's horrible because I think that it encourages war. And I think that it's this. And somebody else say, I don't believe it. And I think the way you think because I think that there should be no place called hell. And hell is a fantasy. And I don't want to believe in hell. And hell is not right. And some people say, I don't believe in heaven. I think heaven is here on earth. And I think that you should live heaven down here on earth. And I think this. And I think that. And people got all kinds of reasons to believe it. But I want to explain my reasons why I think the Bible is an atrocious, horrible, horrific monstrosity of a book. That's a wonderful book all at the same time. I know that sounds like a contradiction. You said the Bible's full of contradictions, but the reason why I love God and I believe in God and I believe in His book, I know it wasn't written by God. It was written by men inspired by God. Because it does not try or attempt to make God or God's people look good in any possible, conceivable way. The most hardened atheist, the most non-believing person have to agree to that. It is a book of terrible, terrible things. Yes, it has wonderful, marvelous things in it, like the story of Samson and Delilah. It has the good, but it also has the tragic end of Samson. It has the wonder and splendor of the beginning of man's creation, but it also has the tragic end of one son who got himself in a bit of a pickle. It has highs, but it has monstrosity, terrible ends, lows. And it does not make the people of God look good at all. King David, a man after God's own heart. King David, who's credited for writing many of the Psalms. Even the 23rd Psalms is credited to King David. King David, who was the father of the wisest man who ever lived outside of Jesus Christ, who we look at in the Bible, King Solomon. But King David broke every record, broke every commandment almost, still loving the Lord. A failed, flawed human being. A more tragic story than anything you've ever seen in the movies. It's a wonderful story. There was Moses, who failed in many, many ways. Did you know that Moses didn't even make it to the promised land? That's right. Who would put that in a book that's edifying God and God's people? There's Adam and Eve. Adam, the first man. Weak, terrible choices. Who would put that in the Bible? Who would put that story in there? What good could come from that story? Solomon, wisest man, brilliant man, almost 1,000 women in his life. We're not even sure if he even made it to heaven. Terrible, terrible story. Fascinating tale. So the Bible is just incredibly filled with just all kinds of stories. Good and bad. And I dare say probably more bad and sad stories than even good ones. But we read the Bible not as a book of sorrow, but as a book of victory. Because in the midst of all these, as we call them, saints, true believers, people who walked with God, people who talked with God, had some terrible endings. like all the disciples, I think, were killed in the end. But yet their story and their memories are great. The things that they have accomplished are great. The body of believers that they helped create and the churches that they set up in Athens and all other places, Antioch, just wonderful, victorious testimonies, even though their ends were not so great. But the Bible is just a book, a bloody book. Great, victorious stories of blood, sweat, tears, and shouts of joy. So that book is so real and so rich and does not paint God or his people with a perfect brush. And I say even God, because there's some choices things that God did in the Bible that I, even now, have problems, getting behind. I thought, personally, I think Moses should have made it to the promised land. He made a mistake. But God still blessed him, but didn't bless him to go to the promised land. Yes, he'll be in heaven, we believe. But he didn't get a chance on earth to go where he really, really wanted to go. I personally had a real problem with that. But I accept it because God knows best and God knows what he's doing. So as the story goes, what can I say? So there's a lot of things that you like, and there's a lot of things you dislike. That's what makes it such a fantastic and great read. Because there's some things you can get behind, and there's some things you can be like, well, I don't know about this. But I know that I believe because of the imperfections of the book. I know that I believe because the understanding God had of mankind. I know that I believe because of the great miraculous works that I think Jesus Christ, I believe that he did accomplish. And you know why I believe it? Because when you think of the interactions between man and God and the miracles and just the terminology and the way man got along back then, the psychological dealings. When you think of that, you say, that's the way it would have happened. That makes sense. Now, I'm not talking about the walking on water and all that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about the miracles. The miracles, to a lot of people, don't make sense. Of course, to believers, they make all the sense in the world. Matter of fact, they're fantastic. They got this one in there about Jesus and these fishermen going fishing. They've been out there fishing all day. They couldn't catch anything, and Jesus told them, hey, throw your net on the other side of the boat. And they're like, look, we've been out here all day. We know what we're doing, but because you asking us to do it, we'll go ahead and do it. And they throw their fishing nets on the other side of the boat. They got a great, gigantic yield of fish comes in instantaneously. So great that the fishing nets almost burst from all the fish that were brought into the net. It's one of the great stories in the Bible. The Bible is filled with fantastic stories. I mean, you think Star Wars was exciting? You think Lord of the Rings had some excitement in it? You think some of these other stories that you've read, these books and fantasy books and books about things were fantastic, about dragons and sorcerers and all this kind of stuff. That was fantasy. Our book is based on accounts that people believe that actually happened. You get the human interaction and the psychological benefit of how these guys actually thought. So you read some of those books that you read. You look at, some of those stories. And those are some fantastic fantasy stories out there. Lord of the Rings and other Star Wars and all these other things. And then you read the Bible. And you compare the two. You don't believe in God? Fine. Read it as a fantasy book. You like those fantasy books, they don't promise you nothing. Read this book and see, compare the two. I tell you, it's the one of the greatest reads you'll ever read in your life. It's the greatest book ever written, according to the Guinness Book of Records. It's quoted by everybody who ever put together more than one book in one form or fashion. There's very few writers who ever wrote a successful book that you've heard about that doesn't have at least one quote from the Bible in it. Shakespeare, the Bible is laced through Shakespeare. Most people you think of, believers and non-believers, motivational speakers and all, motivational books, outside of just regular scientific books, you can hear parts and pieces and bits of the Bible. So it's the greatest book ever written because it's the top selling book all over the world. There's no book that comes close. It's number one. We're number one. We're number one. So, in spite of books that said God is not great, the Bible is great. It's a fact. It's in black and white. Numbers don't lie. It's a great book. And our hearts, the hearts of believers, believe that God is great. So that's all I got to say about it. That's my reason for believing. And that's why so many people believe. So some people do hate God. And so many more do love God. I don't know where you stand. But I would say, check it all out. I think that, if nothing else, it'll be a great, great story. Thank you so much. This has been your boy, Stone Thug, writer, rapper, singer, saying peace. Thanks for listening.